Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of In Lay Terms. I'm your host, Payman Asghari, and today we have another PPC candidate here is Miss Taraneh Javanbakht. How are you doing, Taraneh?
Hi, Payman. Thank you very much. I'm fine. And you?
I'm doing pretty good. It's Sunday, so I get to sleep in. I got an extra few hours of sleep. Uh, I don't know. Does that apply to you? You're a mother. I guess you never get time off.
No, it's okay.
Uh,
Yeah.
Okay, Taraneh, why don't we, to get things started, I always ask the PPC candidates to tell the audience a little about themselves. So if you could tell us, um, you don't have to go into too much detail, but where do you live? What's your writing like? When did you come here? What do you do for work?
I was born in Tehran and I lived there till the age of 23. I did my studies, some parts of my studies there. So I went to school, to primary school and high school. Then I did a bachelor in chemistry at Shahid Besh University in Tehran. And at the age of 23, I moved to Paris to continue my studies. And there I got familiar with the uh, culture of the French people. So it was nice to see how they see life, how they work, what are the differences between the Persian culture, my ancient culture, and those cultures. So um, their culture. So what I did there, mostly I studied, but I also simultaneously have worked. So I did a master's in physical chemistry and at Pierre and Marie Curie University. Then I continued my studies in chemistry and I did a PhD in chemistry. And I wanted to continue living in Paris, but I also wanted to get familiar with other cultures. So I learned German and some other languages there. And simultaneously, I worked. My husband had already applied for the immigration visa to come to Quebec. So I, although I wanted to stay in Paris, but anyway, we moved here, and I noticed that there are some similarities between the French and Canadian cultures, and I became very interested in knowing more and more about the Quebec's culture, so what the Quebecers did, and I also wanted to learn the language of you see the Indians. So I went regularly to the library in the Cottonage neighborhood, and in Montreal when we lived, I tried to get familiar with the Quebec's literature and music. And at the same time, I continued my studies. I got a postdoctoral position at Polytechnic of Montreal, and I was also interested to um, develop my knowledge and in other fields, So I did philosophy. So I did a propedeutics in philosophy. Then I did my second master's in molecular biology and my third master's studies in philosophy at the University of Quebec in Montreal. And after that, at the same time, I was a researcher and lecturer at Polytechnic of Montreal and the University of Montreal. So I worked and simultaneously I studied in different fields. And I did my second PhD in artificial intelligence and in cognitive science at the same university. And right now, I'm doing my third PhD in philosophy, and I'm doing a bachelor in mathematics at Concordia University. So during all these years, I've also worked as a researcher. So I worked at the University of Quebec in Montreal. I was research associate. So I was involved in different research projects, and I also supervised the students' projects. It was amazing, and I'm still continuing it. But um, just before the COVID pandemic, my husband had the idea of having a farm and changing our lifestyle. So because we wanted to be in a different situation, because you see, during several decades, I've lived in big cities like Tehran, Paris, Montreal, but we decided to change our lifestyle. So at the time, we searched for a farm in the southern part of Quebec. But finally, we moved to the eastern part of Quebec, and right now I live in the Bas Saint Laurent region, and I'm the PPC candidate for Rimouski La Matapédia.
So my takeaway from that is you have 11 PhDs. How many total? How many degrees?
I'm doing my third PhD right now.
I had a hard time getting my first high school diploma, let alone the third PhD. So good for you.
You see, but I was always also interested in doing arts and literature. I've written 14 plays and 5 scenarios, and I've also several published poem books and short story books. They were published in Iran before I came to Canada, and one of my published poem books contains my poems in several languages. So it was interesting, and sometimes I continue to write plays, and I have also 4 unpublished novels, and I'm reworking on them because I want to. Unfortunately, I didn't have enough time to find a publisher, but I think that it can happen soon. I will try, but right now I'm involved in my political activities, so it's a question of time. But it's a project that in the future I think that I can publish my other literary works.
I imagine that your resume, your CV is like 50 pages long.
But you see, I don't mention all my activities when I want to send my CV somewhere. You see, when I wanted to search a position at university, I only mentioned my scientific activities, not my works in literature, philosophy, or arts, because they're not, they don't concern the scientific activities at university.
Fair enough. All right, Taraneh, I have a whole bunch of questions, and they just came up. So you and I, you might not be prepared for this, but I think based on what you told me. So the first thing I wanted to start, you said you moved from Tehran, Iran to Paris, France. What was your like? Why did you leave Iran? What was your motivation for doing so?
At the age of 14, I wanted to move to Paris. You see, under the Iraqi planes bombardments. Just imagine when we were I can tell you, in a very bad situation in Tehran when Iraqi planes arrived and bombarded everywhere in the city. So I decided not to continue to live there. And you see what I was bothered with the current situation there, because you see, I think that religion is a personal issue, and there with the different religious philosophical, I can tell you, philosophical lifestyle. It bothered me. I wasn't interested in that, and I wanted freedom. I wanted to be in a democratic country, and unfortunately, we didn't have it in Iran. So I left my country. Sadly, I left there, but I believe that I couldn't do anything to change anything, because at the time I was only 14 years old. I hadn't finished my studies. I still continued my studies at schools, So I thought that I didn't have enough power to get involved in politics, and at the time I wasn't interested to do politics. But I think that I had a good opportunity to go to Europe, and I visited France because my mother is also familiar with the French culture. She did a part of her PhD in Paris on clay, on the effects of clay for pharmaceutical, you see, for medicaments. What are the effects of clay, using clay in medicaments? So, because she is a pharmacist, and so I got familiar with the French culture, and it was okay for me, and I saw it as an opportunity to be integrated in the French culture, not to continue my life in Iran, because I was bothered. It wasn't amazing to live during a war, and but afterward I continued to write on women's movement and human rights. I have written a lot of papers on human rights, and I continue to do something for my country. So I was interviewed by the news agencies, by journals, by magazines, by radios, Iranian radios. At the time, they were interested to know more about me. But I thought that I couldn't do a great thing to change the situation in Iran, because, there the situation was somehow different. And I think that I chose a good thing to continue my life in France and then in Canada.
So my next question, you kind of answered it. It was your mother's influence
Yeah.
that drove you to France. Was there any other reason? Like, was it the easiest to get a visa? Was there a university? Did you speak French?
I was interested to see the French culture, and especially, you see, I wanted to see Quartier Latin. It's a neighborhood in Paris where great scientists, great chemists, and physicists live there. So it was my second motivation. The reason for my second motivation, why I was motivated to go to Paris, it was to get more familiar with the scientific life.
Okay, fair enough. And then my next question would be, from France, connect the dots. How did you go from France to Canada? Why not America or England or anywhere else?
Okay. You see, in Quebec, we have a similar culture with the French culture, you see. So it wasn't difficult for me to be integrated to the Quebecers lifestyle, because here we have the same language. And also I was familiar with some Quebecer writers and musicians. I was interested to know more, and my husband had already applied for a visa. So it's why I came here, and then I continued to read novels and plays written by the Canadian writers. So it was a very nice period that I lived in the Côte de Neige neighborhood in Montreal. So the similarity of cultures, this is the reason why I preferred Canada to other countries, because the French culture and the Quebec's culture, you see, the Quebecer culture, they are very similar together. You see, the Quebecers live not exactly, but somehow similar to the French people.
Okay, I want to tie a couple of things. So you're using the word culture. I'm assuming when you say culture, you mean like social culture. You know, what they do for fun, their accent, their food, their clothing. So every country has a different. I'm trying to get to Iran. Like, what is the problem with Iran? Because I left when I was like 3, so I only know the big issues. You know, women have to cover their hair. I think women are only 50% of men as witnesses. Like, you need 2 women to testify as a witness. Are there other problems in Iran, or like maybe this concept of if it's okay to lie and cheat and steal? Like, what are the main issues in Iran with Iran's culture?
Human rights issue. We have a big problem concerning anything. As soon as somebody opens his or her mouth and speaks, even if the subject is not a political subject, but he or she, the person, can have a lot of problems in Iran, unfortunately. So everything becomes political because of the system, because of the regime, Iranian regime. So it's not easy to live there. We have a lot of problems, not only for women, but also for children. We have children who work in the streets. They're poor, they're not protected. And I can tell you that the political system ignores them. And we have also our nation. You see, Iranians are suffering right now. We have a lot of money. We have gas. We have everything, but they still are treasure. They send to the Middle East, to the other countries of the Middle East. We have a lot of problems there.
Okay, fast forwarding to Canada, since you've come here, you've been somewhat politically involved. You've been following politics. I think you told me you saw the problems, and first you tried to solve it through the Liberal Party, and then voting NDP,
Mhm.
until finally you've settled with the People's Party. What did you see in the Liberal Party? What did you see in the NDP Party?
Uh, I think that at the time that I voted for NDP, um, I hope something. I thought that perhaps they will do something different for the country. You see, the Liberal Party pretended to think about the needs and rights of our people, do something different. But when I think that I voted for NDP because I thought that perhaps NDP will be better, I didn't find something interesting in their policies. You see, during several years that I've lived in Quebec, I've seen that nothing has changed, but life has become worse and worse each year, economically, socially, and even when we look at the schools, the Canadian culture, we see that it has worsened during several years. I can give you some concrete examples. For example, uh, the Liberal Party pretends to think about the people's needs, but we have seen that the Trudeau administration has sent billions of dollars to the globalist organizations like the United Nations or the World Economic Forum. And they have also spent a lot of money, billions of dollars for carbon tax or subsidies. You see, this is not appropriate for our people. I believe that they would help our nation, but it was a false belief. Sometimes we make mistakes. So I made a mistake and I changed my mind. And you see, at the time I was pessimistic about politicians, and I wasn't interested to become a politician. So I thought that perhaps I will ignore the political life and their role as the individuals who could do something for our country. But at the same time, I questioned myself. I thought, okay, what can I do? You see, what could I do for the country? So it is the question of being convinced by something in life, and I wasn't convinced by their activities. You see, because even at schools they distributed a lot of things to change the children's minds. For example, the LGBT propaganda. You see, I have some other hopes for our children. And this is a great problem in the Occidental countries. Here in Canada, we have this problem. But at the same time, you see, because I think that this is the question of brainwashing. Some children really don't want to change their gender, but they are influenced by the LGBT propaganda. Some of them, yes, but some of them aren't motivated. And after seeing or hearing these propagandas, they change their mind. So this is an issue that I think that we can do something with the PPC candidates, I hope, because the Liberals have worsened the cultural situation in Canada. You see, we have a lot of problems. For example, when we talk about the Canadian identity, what we are talking exactly about? We are talking about the integration of the immigrants who enter our country to the Canadian culture. But the inverse situation has happened. Even when we look at the politicians, for example, Trudeau or Poilievre, when we look at them, we see that they are inversing the Canadian culture. They put on the Indian dresses, and they also talk in Indian language, and they are not really attached to the Canadian culture. We should see the inverse phenomenon here. You see, I'm really surprised how people could accept these guys like politicians, because they have inversed the image of Canada. Just right now, you see, Trump has tried to impose tariffs to Canadians, to Mexicans. You see, and for example, for Greenland, he has also some plans to get Panama. Yeah, you see, but for Canada, I'm just imagining if Pierre Poilievre wins the federal election, the next election, what he will do, which image he can show to the world. I think that his image will not stronger than Trudeau. It will even be weaker than Trudeau's image. Trudeau is a globalist, we know that, but Poilievre is not better than him. And at the time, I was very pessimistic to get involved in politics, but last year, I read some of the PPC's policies, and I met Mr. Maxime Bernier, our leader, during his conference in Montreal. So little by little, I knew that no, there is something different with the PPC policies in comparison with those of the other federal parties. This is why I became interested to do something in politics for our nation. And I hope that we will have some MPs in the next federal election. I hope so.
God willing. Just a comment from the audience. Billy Ray, I don't know what CUTV is. I hope I'm not embarrassing myself somehow. But if you can describe that, I'll put up your comment. Taraneh, I had a question, and I seem to have forgotten it. Oh, here. So when I go to Iranians, specifically the new immigrants, so someone who's gotten citizenship in the last 5 years, and I try to get them to support the People's Party, I'm blown away. Like the first question they ask me is, like, what can you do for me to get my family and my friends from Iran into Canada? And like it takes a while, and I kind of explain to them, we're all in the same boat. If we keep bringing people on the boat, we're going to take on water, and then we're all going to drown. Like if you bring too many people here, your kids aren't going to have good education. How do you speak to Iranians to tell them that we have to slow down immigration?
I think that everybody wants to invite the members of his or her family and see all of them here in Canada, but it's not a realistic thing. And we have several issues to consider when we think about immigration. You see, I think that a politician shouldn't think about himself or herself. This is my first conviction. When I'm doing politics, when I'm doing my political activities, I shouldn't think about my family. First, I should think about our nation here. Why? Because if I want to think about my family and have them come here, I can't tell somebody else, oh, sorry, it's not a good idea. But when I'm doing the opposite thing, it's not honest to do this. So I believe that if I say something to others, I should do the same thing. So if I say the people in my riding, because in my riding most of them are Quebecers. We have a few we have few people who are immigrants. Most of them are Quebecers. So when, for example, I come to Montreal, I see some colleagues, or at Polytechnic, we have many Iranians. When I talk to them, or when I see the people who are interested to invite their families, not only Iranians, but other immigrants, you see what I tell them? I tell them that it's not a good idea to think only about our families, because we have already a lot of problems here. And we have illegal immigrants, you see. At the time when I immigrated to Canada, it was 2003. In 2003, I immigrated to Canada. And at the time, we were about 150,000 individuals. So the newcomers were around 150,000. And during several years, this population has increased to around 1,002,000 or 3,000 people. You see, so the newcomers here are changing the identity of our culture if they don't integrate to our culture. Right now, I should think about the Canadian culture. I cannot promote the Iranian culture. You see, when we let a lot of people coming here, 10 times more than the population at the time that I immigrated here. So the question is, can they be integrated to the Canadian culture? This is a serious question. And you see, some people are interested in Canadian culture, but some of them only want to be here to get a job and to continue their life in an Occidental country where the situation is better than that of their country, you see. So I think that the question of population, and also integration, these issues should be considered concerning the immigration. You see what, this is not only the problem of immigrants or newcomers. We have also a problem that I call the internal migration. We have this problem in Canada right now. You see, I'm very interested to know the people's problems and needs when I go somewhere or when I live somewhere. And it's around 1 year and a half that I have lived in the Bas Saint Laurent region, and there we have a lot of farms. We have a lot of lands, agricultural lands, and people have different lifestyle in comparison with the the people's situation or lifestyle who live in big cities like in Montreal, for example, or in Toronto. And there, the farmers have been living there during centuries. These are not immigrants. Most people in my riding are Quebecers whose parents and grandparents have also lived in the same region. You see, so the problem there is the internal migration. They are leaving the villages, unfortunately, and this is a great, great issue. And unfortunately, the Liberal Party, the Conservative Party, the NDP, or the Green Party, they don't, and the politicians, they don't care about this issue. But this is a real problem and a very, very important issue to resolve. And you know what? We have some exaggerated regulations concerning, for example, the milk quota, or, for example, the other regulations for. They have tried to ban people from selling their agricultural products since 1970. So during 55 years, all the governments in Canada have either initiated or supported these regulations, and they have added and added other and other regulations. So we have the problem of the population decrease in the villages in my riding, and not only in the eastern part of Quebec, but all around the country. We have this problem that I call the internal migration, and we have lost a lot of people. You see, they have left the villages. Why? Because of the supply mismanagement, because of the exaggerated regulations. They can't sell their products. Selling products is only considered for big companies. I'm telling you. The people who have a lot of money to buy the milk quota and to buy big lands, large lands, you see. But some regulations, I find that they are exaggerated. For example, in some zones, agricultural zones, the municipalities say, okay, you should have a 5-hectare land in order to construct a building. In other zones, they say, no, 5 hectares is 5 hectares is not okay. So the 5-hectare land will not be appropriate to construct a building on the land. So you should have at least 20 hectares. So you see, the federal government isn't involved to do something for this, because this is the provincial governments who manage this, who are involved in supply management and who manage this issue. But I think that the federal government can also help and reduce the population decrease in the agricultural zones or in the rural regions of Canada, because we are losing our people. I am telling you, for example, in La Rédemption, in the village where I live right now, when I'm living right now, we have around 350 people living there. We had more than 1,000 people living there, and they have left the village. And this is not only in La Rédemption. We have this problem everywhere, in Quebec and also in other provinces of Canada. In Alberta, I know that it's better than in Quebec because we don't have such exaggerated regulations there. But in Saskatchewan, in Ontario, or in British Columbia, we have the same problem. It's interesting to have a presentation and to discuss with statistical results, because I'm telling you the result about La Rédemption. Around 3 times the population has decreased in the village, but we have the same problem elsewhere. So it should be, I think, a change. We should change this, and I think that we can present this with statistical data, because when we present the data about the population, for example, we say the population has decreased to 3 times less than before. The population has become 3 times less than before. In this village, it's convincing, but a comparison between different parts of Canada, it can be interesting and more convincing. And I think that the PPC candidates can do this. I can do for Quebec. I can search on the web and find some interesting information about the problems with supply mismanagement and population decrease, for example, but population decrease. But I think that we can do better, and we can discuss this, and also we can criticize the politicians who haven't done anything for the people who live in the rural regions. You see, I've lived in Tehran, in Paris, and in Montreal, but I can't only think about myself. And when I started living in La Rédemption, I had no problem, because we bought a house, a big land. So this is not my problem, but this is a real problem in my writing. This is the people's problem, so it has become my problem. You see, I should think about the villagers who are leaving La Rédemption and other villages. I shouldn't think about myself. Okay, I have my land, I have my house, so everything is okay for me. And I'm happy that I've begun the political activities now. Right now, during several years, I didn't do it. I didn't do it because I wanted to work. I wanted to have a good job. You see, but now my economic situation is stable. I have my family. I have everything I want. So it's the right time to do politics, because I can think about the other people. Why the population in my riding in the villages has decreased. This is a real problem in Canada, and we have to maintain our populations in different regions of Canada, because they are the producers in our country. They produce everything. And I have a farm there. I have no problem with my agricultural activities there, because I have a big land. But my neighbors who have less hectares, what they can do, some of them have left. You see, they aren't immigrants. They are the Quebecers whose ancestors were Quebecers. Their grandparents, their grandparents, and their parents. All of them are the Quebecers, and some of them have died, some of them still live, but they have the right to continue their activities. They are dissatisfied, most of them, and they leave the villages around the country, not only in Quebec, but around the country. We have this problem.
I want to talk about the squeeze. So with things like the dairy cartel, supply management, they're putting downward pressure. So you have less revenue. You can't sell your products as well. So you have less money. What about on the other end? Is it simply that they have less money to buy food and live, or are the costs also going up, like property tax?
Both of them. You see, it's a question of money, but you see, it's also the question of power. And it's the question of politicians. It's not only, you see, I think that some politicians are neglecting the inappropriate situation that we have right now in the villages and in the rural regions of Canada. But not only the cartels, also some politicians who are not involved in their, I can say, inappropriate activities, but they are not involved in these cartels, but they are neglecting the situation. They only either think about themselves or they have some other ideas and they think that other issues are more important. You see, but the problem that we have in the villages is also the problem of money. You see, some villagers don't have enough money, so they have small lands. But for example, I give you an example. For example, a 5-hectare land is sufficient to have a farm and to have the agricultural activities. But in some zones in Quebec, the municipalities say, yes, this is not enough. You should have at least 20 hectares. So I think that this is an exaggerated regulation, because 5 hectares is enough to be far from rivers, far from the other neighbors, to have an appropriate agricultural activity. But in some municipalities, they say, it is not sufficient to have only 5 hectares. You should have at least 20 hectares, a 20-hectare land. So it varies from one zone to another. So this is a question of money, because some villagers don't have enough money to buy larger lands, but they also can't construct their buildings, so they leave the villages.
So getting back to the People's Party, what about the policies? I know you said you met Max and you looked at the policies and you liked them. If you could speak to them, are there any policies that you would say are more important than the others, you agree with the most, or just generally speak to the PPC platform?
And the PPC policies are very appropriate concerning supply management. Why? Because Mr. Maxime Bernier, during several years, has proposed new strategies. For example, he has proposed to cancel the milk quota or the regulations that can affect the villagers' life. And he has also proposed international activities with other countries. And you see, instead of banning people to have their agricultural activities in these green lands, we can develop these activities and even motivate the people to get involved in the international activities instead of banning them and causing the population decrease. So the PPC has public policies are appropriate, and PPC has right strategy. You see, an appropriate strategy. But the other federal parties, no, they haven't even thought about this issue. So, Mr. Bernier, Maxime Bernier, has proposed these solutions since 8 years ago.
What about let's go to the Conservative Party. Like, what do you say to the argument that, why not just go with the Conservative Party? Don't split the vote. Try to make change from within, and at least they're better than the Liberal Party.
You see, the attachment to the Canadian culture. This is the first thing to which I think when I consider the Conservative Party. As soon as you question me about this party, I'm thinking about Pierre Poilievre. Is he an appropriate representative for our country? He who has attached to other identities, other cultures, just to get some more votes. You see, this is not honest. This is not honest. And so I don't think that he's honest to manage the political issues of our country and be involved with the international affairs. And so this is one problem with this party, but they have some other issues. For example, concerning the cultural issues, you see, they haven't tried to help our people strengthen our identity. You see, during several years, they have let the liberals do anything they have wanted to do. For example, with the LGBT propagandas at schools. This bothers me, you see, because I think about our children here in our country, and they are the victims of this negligence. This is a real negligence that I've seen. The Liberal Party and the Conservative Party, both of them have caused more and more problems concerning the Canadian culture. The Conservatives have supported the change of Canadian culture and identity during several years. They have supported the Liberal Party's policies, you see, policies. So I don't think that they are appropriate politicians to do something for our country. They have worsened the situation here. Economically, they have agreed sending thousands of affairs and billions of dollars, having inappropriate affairs and sending billions of dollars to globalist organizations. Subsidies, carbon tax. You see, Pierre Poilievre wants to continue what Trudeau has done, to spend money, billions of dollars, and I'm convinced that if he wins the election, we will begin a worse situation than what we had with Trudeau.
I can't even. That would be horrible. I don't even want to imagine that. That's pure communism.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But this is a real problem. This is a real problem.
I was going to say we can end it with an easy question. Should Canada stay in the World Health Organization or withdraw?
You see, I think that we can be a part of this organization because we are an independent country, but we shouldn't waste money for their projects. We shouldn't send millions of dollars to the United Nations or to other globalist organizations. We can do a lot of things with these amounts of taxes that our people are paying. I think that we can reduce these taxes in our country and not waste money for these organizations, for World Economic Forum, for example, or the United Nations.
Okay. Taraneh, I think we're almost at the 50-minute mark. So I was just going to say, if you could tell the audience where they could follow you, learn more about you, or maybe donate to your campaign.
They can find my website by searching my name on Google. My activities, my works in different fields, and also they can find my page on the PPC website. My profile, a short profile is there. And they also can find some of my tweets on Twitter and Facebook. Also, they can find me on Facebook.
There you go, guys. You can go to the People's Party of Canada website, search for Taraneh, and she is the PPC candidate for riding, oh my lord, Rimouski la Matapédia. Sounds like a Spanish name. Yeah, but there you go. So you got her her website. And I don't know, Taraneh, any final words?
I'm happy to discuss with you these issues, and I hope that we will change something really different things we can do for the Canadians, and I hope that we will win the next federal election, because we are doing politics differently, as Mr. Bernier says. He always says that we are doing politics differently, and I hope that we can make a reform in Canada soon.
So, Taraneh, the rest of us PPC candidates were relying on you to win the election. You have the most PhDs, so you're the most likely to win.
You see, I don't have a lot of experience in politics, but some of them have more experience than me. But I think that doing politics is different from doing science or other things. So, yeah, and I'm very happy to be a candidate for PPC.
Best of luck, Taraneh. Thank you very much for coming on, and thanks to the audience for listening in.
Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Bye.
Bye.